Saturdays before I leave tonight.
It was the worst when I had a schizophrenia breakdown in Washington, D.C. I was
I don't know
running
exactly
around
when,
for
but
3 days. I was lost in the subway.
like 5.
I was scared. I envisioned crowds yelling and screaming, wanting to get me. I saw my deceased father on the platform and heard his voice. I looked for him, but I couldn't find him. The train took me to the very last stop, and a police officer tried to help me. I was really out of it, and they
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started here in the lunch plenary in just a moment. Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started with this afternoon's plenary. So if you'll please take your seats. All right. My name is Heather Metcalf, and I'm the Director of Research for the Women in Engineering Proactive Network, and it is my pleasure to introduce this afternoon's plenary speaker. Dr. Juan E. Gilbert is the Banks Family Preeminence Endowed Professor and Chair of the Computer and Information Science and Engineering Department at the University of Florida, where he leads the Computing for Social Good Lab. He is a Fellow of the Association of Computing Machinery, a Fellow of the IEEE, a Fellow of the AAAS, and a Fellow of the National Academy of Inventors. Dr. Gilbert was named a laureate of the National Medal of Technology and Innovation by President Joe Biden. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Gilbert to the stage.
Thank you. Let's see. Is this the clicker? Let me see something. Is this it? Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I'm going to talk to you about computing for social good and tell you a little bit about myself. So let's begin with my background. If you look at this picture in the upper left-hand corner, that's Hamilton, Ohio. That's where I was born and raised. I was the third child in my family. There's 4 of us. And my father had an 8th grade education. He was born in Pulaski, Tennessee. Does anybody know the significance of Pulaski, Tennessee? I know you know, Shirley. It's the birthplace of the Klan. My family was there when that happened. My mother was a high school graduate, and she worked in the high school where I went, and my mom was an academic counselor. She was an aide for students who were hearing impaired. So I was the first in my family to go to college. When I was in high school, I loved science, in particular chemistry. So when I had the opportunity to go to college, I went to Miami University in Ohio. I was a chemistry major, and I took, well, don't cheer yet. I came to Miami University, I took advanced chemistry freshman year because I was really good at it. And one day, the TA, the teaching assistant, pulled me aside and said, "Juan, you're really good at chemistry. You're going to do great here at Miami. You're going to get all A's. You're going to graduate. You're going to go to graduate school. You're going to do this." I said, whoa, wait a minute. Go where? He said, graduate school. That's what we do in chemistry. I said, I got to go to school again? I thought I went to college to get a job. So my life took a downturn at that point. What am I going to do? So I went back to my dorm, and it turns out the resident advisor in my dorm, he was a systems analysis major or computer science, and he had just gotten a job with a fat offer. And I had to take a programming course, and I got an A in it. I changed my major. So I changed my major. I won a scholarship from NCR Corporation. And with that scholarship came an internship. First day on the job, I get there. They said, "Juan, we want you to do this, this, this." I was really good at it. I got it done. And I said, "All right, I'll see y'all later. I'm going home." They said, No. You got to stay around and look busy." I thought, Mom told me I get my stuff done, I can go play. You mean I got to stay here? So again, a downturn. I wasn't that happy about it. So it was my junior year at Miami University. I took a class called Stochastic Systems. And I sat in the first seat, front row. The professor was coincidentally the dean, Dr. David Haddad. I hated that class. I fell asleep in his class. One day he said, "Juan, I want to see you after class." And I'm thinking, oh my God, Dr. Haddad mad at me. You know, his son was a student in the program, and he was my roommate as well. I said, he's going to be mad at me. I'm in trouble. After class, he said, "Juan, I've been watching you. You know what? I think you'd be a good professor someday." And I said, "Dr. Haddad, I fall asleep in your class." He said, "No, I know you don't like my class, but you'd be a good professor." So I went out and did research on what it meant to be a professor, and I saw all these things, and guess what? I could go home when I'm done. But there was one impediment. One thing, guess what I got to do? Go to grad school. So I graduated. I went to work at NCR Corporation full time. I went to school at night to get a master's degree. Got my master's degree, and then went back full time. Ended up getting my PhD from the University of Cincinnati. When I graduated, I started my career at Auburn University. Yep, Auburn's where I started. I was there 9 years, and then Clemson came knocking and made me an offer I couldn't refuse, so I didn't refuse it. I went to Clemson. We were there 5 years, and life was great. It was October 2013. My phone rings, and it was the Dean of Engineering at the University of Florida. And you hadn't heard this story. You're going to like this. So she called me, and she said, Juan, University of Florida has been given money to become a preeminent institution. We want to become a top 10 public university, and we have funding to go hire people who will help advance us in this area. And you've been identified as a preeminent candidate. Would you like to come to Florida? I said, no. I'm living the dream. We got the most black faculty in computer science, the most black PhD students in computer science. I'm not making this up. I had a box in the football stadium. I'm not leaving this. Life is great. So what happened? So she said, why don't you come give a talk? That's how it always starts, right? So I came down, gave a talk because I knew some people. It was dinner that evening, and she said, Juan, seriously, what would it take to move you? I said, it'd take the world to move me. And then she said, I think we got it. I said, I want this, 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 this. She said, yes, 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 and one no. The box. I couldn't get a box at Florida. So at the end of the day, 5 faculty, 2 postdocs, and 20 PhD students moved to University of Florida. And Florida, yeah, it was a big move. So that's how I started my career. I didn't see this as a career option for me. I didn't know this was an option for me. No one in my family went to college. I didn't know anything about college or grad school. I was trying to avoid grad school. When I went to the PhD program, my dad, I'll never forget, he said, son, why are you going to mess with that good paying job like that? He didn't know. He only had an 8th grade education. He was brilliant though, but he didn't know. So people saw things in me that I didn't see in me. And it's important for you all here, when someone says something to you like that, you take it serious. Okay. Here's a picture of me and my advisor, Dr. Juan. He took a chance on me, and it changed my life forever. So, now, let me tell you about what it is we do and what we've been able to do. Now, when I talk about these projects, keep in mind that each one of these could be an hour talk by itself, okay? So let me begin. Making voting more accessible for everyone. It was the year 2000. I wasn't in Florida when all that stuff went down. But the government created the Help America Vote Act as a result of issues we had in 2000. And there was a requirement in there that said every voting precinct had to have at least one accessible voting machine for people with disabilities. When they did that, I thought they're good intention, but they got it wrong. It's so wrong. So I called them up and said, you can't do that. They said, this is the only way to do it. I said, what you just created is a separate but equal connotation, and that doesn't serve us well. People with disabilities are going to have to vote differently than everyone else. And they said, they have to. There's no other way. So we went to the lab, and we did it. We created one machine that everyone could vote on, independent of your ability or disability. If you can't see, if you can't hear, if you can't read, if you don't have arms, you could vote on the same machine as anyone else. At the time, we didn't know that we had created the world's most accessible voting technology, but we did. So we created this technology. It's called Prime 3. It was open source, and Prime 3 was adopted by the state of New Hampshire in 2016, was used in presidential primary and the presidential election. It was the first open source voting system to be used in state, federal, local elections in the United States, and we created that. And when I say we, it was my lab, and what's interesting, people like you. Every summer I have students come to my lab and they work as undergrad researchers. It's funny because they go vote and they say, this looks familiar. Yes, we did that. People have died for the right to vote and we've changed voting in the United States of America. This is a picture of what New Hampshire setup was. They had the tablet. You see the switch and the headphones. So if I'm blind, I can put this on and I can navigate, say, the next contest and select, and it printed a ballot. Ohio, Butler County, Ohio, adopted our software to be their accessible remote absentee voting system. So a blind person or a person that can't make it to the poll could tell them they want to do accessible absentee, and they get a link to our system. They can mark it and print it and mail it in. So one of our latest inventions is a transparent voting machine. Okay? So hopefully you guys are young enough. I want you to remember this presentation, because what I'm about to show you, I'm going to say is the future of voting. Ballot marking devices are computer devices. Some of you, especially if you're in Georgia, you vote using one of these. It has a touch screen, you touch it, you mark your ballot. You in Georgia, then it prints the ballot, right? That's called a ballot marking device. There were studies done by some of my colleagues with these, and one was done in Michigan. What they did was they got a group of people in, used a ballot marking device, and they flipped one of their votes when it printed. And they wanted to see if people would notice. Well, only 6.6% of their participants told them something was wrong. This created an uproar in the country. They said, oh, these machines aren't secure, all this stuff. So we created this. What you're looking at is the prototype. You notice that it's a touch screen. I'm touching, clicking through, and I'm saying print my option. And it prints right in front of me. Now I'm required to actually touch what was just printed to continue. So what I'm doing is essentially turning paper into a touch screen. Now this is the paper airplane to the jet. This is just the prototype. Okay? So I'm able to mark my ballot, and I can only continue once I touch what was printed. And this is running our Prime 3 software, so it's fully accessible for a person that has audio and things like that. Okay, so you get the idea, right? I make a selection, it prints, I have to verify it by touching it to continue. So we did a study, similar study, where I flipped one of the contests, and I want to see if they would notice with this environment. Participants were told the experiment was investigating post-election sentiment using this voting machine. So this was conducted right after, the 2020 presidential election, so 2021. What else was happening there? COVID, you'll see. So I did this study. It's a deceptive study because I didn't want to tell them what I was really looking at. So we ran the study, had 151 participants, and here's me running the study. You see the participant, she's sitting in front of the machine, and then I'm sitting there with these two laptops, so I'm flipping votes and observing what she's doing. Okay? Now, what did we find? 77% of minimal overall detection rate in this study. Only 6.6% did not notice and could not identify the flip. Of those that did not notice, 71% correctly identified the change. So that gave me an overall 93% correctly identified the change rate. Oh, so wait, before I go on, let me mention this. What I noticed when I ran the studies, so for those of you who are doing any kind of studies with computers, you always do a pilot study before the real study to test out the protocol. In my pilot study, people, when I flip vote, I saw people do this. And they didn't say anything. They just said, how did it go? It went well. I was like, what? I know they saw I flipped their vote because they had a reaction. So then I started asking them, did you notice I flipped one of your votes? And they said, oh, yeah. Well, why didn't you say anything? It's just a study. So in my study, I would ask this question. And this is very, very important. In previous studies, like the Michigan study, they didn't ask that question. We refer to this as the Hawthorne effect. When people know they're being studied, they behave differently than they normally would. So now we're letting people know if you're going to do a vote flipping study, you have to ask them this question because they may have noticed and didn't say anything. So in some sense, we invalidated the previous studies. All right, televoting, internet voting with voter verified paper. Televoting, remember that phrase. That's our next big project. Okay, so that's what we'll do on April the 11th. So we have a new way of voting through the internet that we're going to be sharing with people. And it's called televoting. Remember that. Applications quest. So in 2003, there was a Supreme Court case on the use of race in admissions with the University of Michigan, the Gratz and Grutter case. And I'll never forget this case. It was June 2003. I turned on the TV. The Supreme Court had given their decision. They had a split screen, people for, people against it. And both sides said they won, and both were having a party. And that's when it occurred to me that, hey, everybody missed this. This isn't about race, gender, national origin, things like that. It's not what's the core of the problem. The core of the problem is a capacity issue. Whenever you have more qualified applicants than you have available slots or offers, by definition, you got to turn away someone who's qualified. And when you do that, and if they are motivated, resourceful, and angry, they want to know why. And what's the easiest thing? Race, gender. So, turns out I was right. Look where we are. 2023, Supreme Court, students for fair admissions, back at it again. So we remove race altogether now. So here's the question. Is it possible to achieve diversity without using race, ethnicity as a factor? Yeah. How? So I created this software many years ago, Applications Quest. It's an AI tool that uses clustering. I went to the computer science session today where students were presenting. There was a young man from UMBC who was talking about clustering. So this is a patented version of what he was talking about. Improved, to think of it that way. So what it does, it clusters admissions applications such that the clusters represent holistically diverse groups. So let me explain it the easiest way. As human beings, if I put two applications in front of you and they're identical, you can look at them and say they're 100% similar and 0% different. That's easy. But what happens if I change the grade point average on one and change the major on this one? And I said, now tell me how similar they are. We'd have to struggle with that. This software can accurately measure that difference. So what does that got to do with affirmative action and all of this? Well, if you give me a group of qualified applications, I can compare them all to each other and place them in groups or clusters based on their holistic similarity. And that's those holistically diverse applicant pools where I can then recommend one from each cluster. So We have a patent on this algorithm. It was approved in 2013. University of Florida was using it for scholarships. It has been licensed to an undisclosed entity, Shirley. They won't go public, but they're paying for it, and they're not even using it. There's another entity that has licensed it. It's a university, a major research university. If I said their name, there's not a person in this room who would not know who it is. But guess what? General counsel said, shh, don't tell anybody. No one's suing us. Let's not get attention. But then, sure, that was the original reason, right? They didn't want attention and all this and that. But then they discovered something else. So this university is using our software to process their entire undergraduate admissions. It's a very large research university, okay? Very prominent engineering program. They're using it. They made a discovery. Wait a minute. What we discovered was we used this software. Before we were using it, it took us about 8 weeks to get decisions to our applicants. They had decisions in 48 hours. Don't tell anybody. We got an advantage. Our students are getting decisions weeks, if not months, before everybody else. So now I don't know if they'll ever go public now because they feel like it's a strategic advantage. So what I do is I do this pilot. AQ, which are admissions team. So I'm offering this to all of you in the room. If you have scholarships, if you have any admissions applications, I'm happy to do a pilot with you. It's free. Holistically, more diverse versus the committee. When I've done these, meaning I get diversity across multiple attributes. And I'm not using race, by the way. Results in a fraction of the time. We did another pilot a few weeks ago. They were taking weeks, and literally they sent me the data, and we were on a call, and I said, it's done. They said, no, really, what you going to do? I said, I just ran it. It's done. And this is the big one. You get the same academic achievement levels as the committee. So listen to what I'm saying. With this technology, I can get you holistically more diversity in a fraction of the time with the same academic achievement levels as your committee. So if anybody's interested, let me know. Just let me know. I'll do the pilot. If you don't believe me, check it out. Again, open to do these with scholarships, admissions, hiring. There's different for hiring and like for medical schools, this works differently. It doesn't tell you who gets into medical school. It tells you who to interview for medical school because they interview first. Okay. Brain drone race. What is that?
3, 2, 1, go!
We're launching the world's first brain drone race. What you do is you put on this device called a BCI, or brain computer interface. And we have a computer program that you look at and we tell you, think forward. Like think about pushing a chair forward. So we learn to navigate the drone based on your brain patterns for specific things you're thinking about.
I have actually been looking forward to something like this. I know there's other like BCI technology out there, and I was so excited to just see, like, I just saw this on Facebook and I was like, I need to participate. This is like something I'm really interested in. The first real race, I was just very excited. So I was just trying to focus as much as I could.
You start thinking and you start hearing that motor pick up, and it kind of like kicks you into like a different mental state. So you gotta like focus on just the cue. Once they perfect it, and once after they have a lot of development done, it could be used in every part of our lives.
We're starting a new trend in society. There will be future brain drone competitions. We're starting out with a simple little race right now. Who knows where this will go? It's exciting. So that is not fake. I gotta say that first, because people always say, you didn't really do that. No, we really race drones with our thoughts. So the way it works is that brain-computer interface, what we do is you put it on, and that computer screen, this pyramid comes up. And we tell you to think about pushing forward. You think about pushing a lawnmower or a car forward or whatever. You think about pushing forward. And what's happening is it's registering your thought pattern in your brain for forward. And as you think about it more, the intensity increases. So what it does is it learns to associate your forward thought, and we apply that to the drone to make it go faster. And we were able to race them. Now, when we did this in 2015. You see, I'm at the University of Florida. If you know anything about Florida, it's a big football school. That year, we weren't the best. We weren't very good. But the interesting thing is the brain drone race was the #1 media story out of the University of Florida, worldwide. So one of the students in there, Marvin Endowed, who got his PhD with me, he's a professor at University of South Florida. We did this because, let's be honest, it's cool. This is why we did it. But we wanted to show that the brain-computer interface is a viable technology. People didn't believe it. And so when he did his dissertation, he wanted to see, to be able to use this in a form of self-quantification. Anybody know what that means? If you wear a Fitbit or anything like that, you're quantifying yourself. And then you react to what measurements. So, for example, I'm below my steps, so I'm going to go take more steps. So what if you wore the BCI and you used it as a way to quantify yourself during studying? And if you could see the level of engagement that you have, would you be better at studying? He did a research study and studied that, which was good. We got some good results. But in the study, we discovered a side effect. The side effect that there were students who participated in his study who voluntarily said, because this wasn't on the survey, they voluntarily said, I like this. I have ADD and I think this could help me. We didn't even think about that. If you have ADHD, and you use this device to tell you about your attention, could this improve you or help you? Could it reduce medication? I don't know. It's an open area of research, inquiry. But we did this. Here's another project, culturally relevant computing. Shortly after I finished my PhD, I was making claims that there exists this notion of culturally relevant computing. My colleague said, no, Juan, that's not true. We deal with bits and bytes. There's no cultural bias in what we do. Now, that sounds strange today, knowing what we know, but back then, no one believed me. And I would ask this question, and I pose it to you. Is it possible to invent or create anything in the absence of who you are? No. You show me something and tell me who created it, and I can show you the connection. Culturally relevant computing was the notion that we could use culture, meaning who you are and what you do, to strategically design things to improve your performance. So we went to Chicago and worked with some kids in inner city Chicago who said, Shirley, I'm not making it up, I can't do math. My mom couldn't do math. It's hereditary. I don't like math. So we said, could we teach math from a culturally relevant computing notion and improve engagement and things like that? So I show my age a little bit. When I was a kid, growing up on Saturdays, we watched cartoons. And there was this thing that showed up called Schoolhouse Rock. Conjunction, junction. So What was interesting about Schoolhouse Rock was that had aired so many years ago, and that had aired after that, but everyone who saw it remembered it. I'm a bill on. People never forgot it. What if we could do that with math? This is what we did.
Let me introduce you to this cat Malik, who's currently on the way to go grab some sweets. He had to get some Snickers, cause his sweet tooth triggered. So Kitty's candy stand is where he needed to hit up and pick up about 6 of them Snickers. He grabbed 6 Snicker bars real quick and had 15 penny candies that he wanted to get. The total was $3.15. But Malik said, dang, that don't make no sense, cause it should be more than that little expense. The 50 penny candies cost 1 cent each, but how much did the price of the Snickers reach? Take the penny candies out, that's 15 cents. You get $3, and then you divide $3 by the 6 Snicker bars, and 50 cents is a Snickers individual cost. Malik then thought that his math had failed, but turned to find a sign that said Snickers on sale.
So we built that, and we actually tested it with kids and found that they spent more time on task, were more engaged. We didn't assess improvement yet as far as their scores, but they were more engaged. And this web address has more examples if you want to go check out Adamless. We have lots of samples. So that's what we were able to do. Next, virtual traffic stop. So here's the scenario. One day, I walked into the lab, and a group of my students, who happened to be African-American women, sitting at a table, had sad faces. What's the matter? They said, well, we're just a little frustrated and tired of seeing people get shot for a traffic stop. I said, oh, well, let's do something about that. So we went to the lab, and we came up with this concept. Imagine if you were to be pulled over by a law enforcement officer, and before that officer approaches the vehicle, you could do a video conference with that officer. And a third party of your choice. Parents love that. Kid get pulled over, they can get in on it too? Oh, yeah. Or if you are, what if I'm deaf? I'm hearing impaired. I have a speech impediment. Instead of the officer just coming straight over, I could do this video conference with them and chat with them. So, came up with this idea. We submitted a provisional patent for it in December of 2016. Yeah, that was a while ago. And I'm showing you, let me be clear about this. I'm showing you these dates because people often think, and I was one of these people, dang, that was an overnight success. Now, when y'all hear about this and be like, oh, that's so big, you can say, nah, they did that back in 2015. Here we go. We did a public release in 2017, in January. We did ride-alongs with Gainesville Police Department. That was kind of scary. I got to ride along with the highest cider on the police force. And she would literally, when she pulled someone over, she'd jump out of the car and run to the car in front of her. And I was like, no, I can't die like this. What are you doing? You run into the car? Anyway, it was interesting. What we discovered, there is no protocol for standard protocol for a traffic stop. We did a demo with University of Florida Police Department, submitted the final patent in 2017. We were looking for someone to license this technology. And there was a guy from Texas said he was going to do it. He kept messing around, and then it was 2022. There was another incident. I can't remember which one. But I got fed up, and over the holiday break, I just built it myself. And in spring 2023, I put it in the App Store. So you can get your phone right now and go to the App Store and search for virtual traffic stop, and you'll see this. University of Florida Police Department agreed to do a pilot, and they have it. And so, again, it's available in the App Store, so it's out there. So let me show you. Again, it's at virtualtrafficstop.com. Let me show you what it looks like. So you get pulled over. There's the app. I open the app. It logs me in. I say, start a traffic stop. Select the car I'm driving. And now I'm waiting for the officer to come in. So only the driver can initiate a virtual traffic stop. Cops can't do it. You have to do it. Oh, now there's an officer, Irma Jean, who's coming in. And there we are. Now, this whole thing is being recorded at the same time. And the recording will actually be made available automatically to the driver and the police department at the same time. So you don't have to request it. It'll be in the app. And you can download it, do whatever you want with it. Again, if I was deaf or hearing impaired, I would be using the chat feature where they could chat with the officer, and they would know that. So what you just saw is a sample of the virtual traffic stop. And again, it's in the app stores. If your campus police department or police in your area are interested, contact me. I'm open to doing it, pilots for free. When I talked to law enforcement, there was some pushback initially. So it's been taking some time to, get them on board. But this will save lives. The virtual traffic stop will save lives. We call it a de-escalation tool. We can de-escalate tensions between law enforcement and drivers during the traffic stop. Lab days. We have a unique lab, and we do some interesting things that many computer science labs don't do. I would go give talks around the country, and sometimes I go to a school and speak at a school, and a parent will call me and say, my kid heard you talk and what you guys do, now they want to do computer science. And we said, well, wait a minute, I was only there like 30 minutes. Can we change their views of a scientist and what science do in a short period of time? They know who we are, what we do. So could we scale that? So what I did was I hired a videographer to follow my team around, record us, and then we were going to post a series about us called Lab Days. And we wanted to see, it was a school actually in Atlanta that picked it up and did a study on it. And long story short, it did change their view of a scientist. But here's an example.
Experience a lab you've never seen before.
Don't come to grad school. This class is so hard.
On lab days, you'll see the ins and outs of being an HCC PhD student. The extensive research, the homework, the traveling, the world-changing projects,
Miles Davis.
and yes, the occasional party.
You think you know computer science, but you have no idea.
Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and visit us at www.labdays.com.
So yeah, we released this back in 2013. It was when we started. We were at Clemson at the time. So again, a web series featuring the lab, and we wanted to see if it changed the perceptions of scientists, and teachers were using it in curriculum, and we discovered it did. Kids, if you look at the literature, some of you probably noticed, kids have a very negative view of a scientist. They think that scientists are male, white, and eccentric. That's not a good impression. So we were able to change perceptions. So, we are the Computing for Social Good Lab. Our motto is change the world. What we do, we've done voting, traffic stops, educating diverse populations, affirmative action. We even took on texting and driving, BCI, we created startup companies. We've done so many things and we're not done. There are so many problems facing us today in all disciplines, lots of problems. You all are here at ERN. Be a researcher, innovate, find your passion, do your thing at the best you can do. And if you do, you too can meet the President of the United States. And if you keep doing it, you can meet another one. So, this is my family when we went to the White House. Now, if you notice, President Biden is holding my wife's hand. When we walked in, he said to me, "Oh, I see you brought your daughter with you." My sons did this. We're never here to end of that. I was like, if he doesn't give a one vote in Florida, I know who it is. He's pretty smooth. But anyway, this is my family at the White House. It was a tremendous day, a huge honor to be there. My fellow laureate is here. Rory Cooper, Dr. Cooper is here. He was there. He received one as well. So we had a great time, a great day. And with that, I'll say thank you and take questions. Again, seriously, I'm serious about it. If you want to test out Applications Quest, email me, let me know. If you want to look at the virtual traffic stop, let me know. For those of you who are here in the DC area, I will be back April 11th and speaking at Howard at 3 o'clock. And the technologies you saw, we're going to bring them and do demos and let people actually test them out at Howard on April the 11th. So with that, we can do Q&A, and I'll just put up some pictures of the lab.
Thank you, Dr. Gilbert. We have time for about 1 or 2 questions if folks want to step up to the mic. I think I see someone in the middle here already at the mic.
My name is Bodie Williams, and I go to Housatonic Community College in Bridgeport. Oh, I have to speak closer. Okay. I go to Housatonic Community College in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I actually had 2 questions for you. First of all, how do you go about combating televoting fraud, and how can people that live in more rural areas get access to it, or is it already implemented?
It's not been implemented. We have the concept, and we plan to launch it. We'll see. As far as fraud, we'll see. We think we have a way to prevent hacking and fraud, but we'll see.
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure that my vote counts.
Oh, we do too.
Here in the middle.
Okay, my name is Professor John Thomas from Livingstone College. My question to you, sir, in reference to the virtual traffic stopping app, the prerequisite would be that the police officers would also have it, correct?
Yes. The police have to have it as well. But, I mean, there's ways, they just got to talk to me about it, and I'm willing to give it to them. Citizens can get it. The citizens, if you get pulled over and they don't have it, you ask them to get it. You tell them, why don't they have it? We'll see. This is, again, this stuff is just starting, and you guys are hearing this early. We'll see. But it is a hard sell, because it's a change for them, and that's not easy.
All right, thank you.
And over on the left side, this will be our last question. Dr. Gilbert has a flight that actually got moved up, so you can submit the rest of your questions on the Whova app for Dr. Gilbert.
Hi, my name is Anise Fairbanks. I go to Arizona State University. I was wondering for your application quest, invention. So I know AI can technically be biased based off of those who create it. When you were creating it, how did you, I guess, like test for that, any biases it might have, and like combat it to ensure like a holistic application?
Okay, so when we talk about AI and bias, I think the most common way that happens for those computer scientists in the room, that happens in a supervised model. What that means is you have data that you train on, and it creates a model. And if you put biased data into it, you get a biased model, right? What I've created is an unsupervised AI. It doesn't build a model. It's based on whatever you give it. It's a clustering technique. Okay, so from the jump, it's not using any pre-notions of anything, of anyone or anything. What it uses is what is in the pool. So what the AI, think of it this way, the brain of the AI, the scope of its knowledge is limited to only what's in the pool. And so we tested for that, and in fact, I'm glad you asked that. In fact, it's so good that we started using applications quest AQ to identify bias in other areas. So in other words, notice what I said, in a supervised environment, you take data and you train on that data and build a model. Well, what if we took that data and we put it in AQ first and had AQ recommend the most diverse set of training data? What would happen? We actually studied that, and we found that it not only improved outcomes, but it did result in less bias because it gave you a more diverse training set. And it can only make it as diverse as, it can only optimize what it's given, but it gives you better and improves or reduces bias rather than like random sampling or just using the data itself. So yeah, I'm very confident in what AQ can do with respect to holistic diversity. But again, I offer to everybody, if you think, is there a way, can you really do that, get the same academic achievement levels? Yes. If you don't believe me, we test it. It is amazing what comes out of this. And I am not using race, gender, national, I don't have to use all those things. It uses the application, the other data that you have in your application. And turns out that application is a pretty good representation. Now, with this, so here's what I recommend. I would recommend, based on what AQ can do, using more data. Why not collect religious affiliation? Why not collect political affiliation? I could collect all that data. If you say the people who, for Students for Fair Action, they always claim, well, the academy is too liberal. Well, then let's collect your political affiliation, and I'll diversify with that. I can do that, I guarantee it, in a fair way. So actually adding more attributes, adding more characteristics, and I could diversify by those. It's a different model. See, right now we shrink. They're trying to shrink. So the whole thing with the recent decision, guess what now they're doing? They brought back SAT. You guys notice that? There are states bringing it back, schools bringing back SAT. This is because they addressed the wrong problem. It's a capacity issue. What they want to do is say, let's get SAT and we'll sort everybody by SAT. If I have 100, I'm going to select the top 100 and I'm good to go. That won't work either. You know why? Ties. So if I can select 100, right? What happens if the first 50 have the same score and the next 75 have the same score? That means I got to get rid of 25 of them, right? With the same score. Guess what? I turn away someone who's qualified. They mad. They want to know why. We're still in the same box. This is not going to go away. They're going to start attacking athletes. There's an issue with legacies. Because we're addressing the wrong thing, people. It's not race, gender, national. It's none of that is the issue. It's capacity. Until we acknowledge the real problem, we're going to be wrestling with this forever. So I'll stop there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's thank Dr. Gilbert.
We're just gonna take a photo.
Okay. All right.
Michael. Thank you all. We know there are questions, but we have to get him to the airport. So please submit your questions via Hoover, and we will just get this illustrious speaker to answer those. Thank you all. I will just forego my announcements. Please visit the Hoover agenda for the rest of the sessions today. Thank you. Yeah, oh, come back up, Hoover. Yeah.
Sorry, Iris.
That's all right. I'm gonna slide in.
Stay right here. Yes, I will be back.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.